I just wanted to say, I think Jim Morrison was a modern-day god. Oh, hell. At least a lord.
This is I Don't Even Own a Television. No one here gets out alive.
1, 2, 3. There are books that are good, there are books that are bad. There's some books so fucking awful you wish you never had read them at all. Cause a novel can ruin your life. Hey buddy, I don't even own a television.
All right, welcome to I Don't Even Own a Television, a podcast about bad books. I'm J.W. Friedman.
And I'm Chris Collision, and we have a special guest.
Oh, we do?
We do. Comic book superstar, Christopher Sebela.
Thank you for being here, Chris.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, no problem. So, yeah, we're talking about No One Here Gets Out Alive, inexplicably written by two grown men.
And it's all my fault. This will be the podcast where two relationships with me are severed permanently because I made two grown-ass men read this book.
Was this your suggestion? I can't even remember anymore.
This was 100% mine just because, like, I don't know, I feel like for years, you and I have talked about, like, trashy rock books on Twitter. And this, to me, is sort of like the uber trashy rock book. And I remembered it as being like a fun romp. And it turns out that was not entirely accurate, as I think we'll get to.
No, this is a biography of Jim Morrison, written in a way that I could really only describe as like a psychedelic version of a teen magazine profile.
Oh, God, yeah.
They fawn over this guy to an extent that I don't think I've ever seen in rock journalism before.
Straight up, my new life goal is to get anybody to write something this credulous and easily impressed about me.
The word credulous appears in a very important part of my notes, so we'll hear more about this moving forward for sure. But before we get too much deeper into it, I think we need to do a plot in 60 seconds.
Nobody knows if you finish or not. You've got 60 seconds to give them a plot. Plot in 60 seconds.
So Plot in 60 Seconds is a segment where we try to summarize the book we just read in 60 seconds or less. I think this is going to be a difficult one, Chris. Do you think you can handle it?
Yeah, let me summon my... I really got to spin this out because this is not 60 seconds. But yeah, let's do it.
Okay, ready. Begin.
Okay, I even forgot the name of it. No One Here Gets Out Alive is the story of Jim Morrison. Begins with him as an asshole child, and then he grows into an asshole teenager. He's part of a military family, so he bounces around. Everything he does is amazing. And then he goes to California, UCLA, joins film school, sucks at that. Stumbles into a band, starts a band called The Doors. They're wildly successful, and then he continues to drink, is an even huger asshole, and then dies, and then there's a conspiracy theory about whether or not he's dead. The end.
Oh, yep, that's it. That's under 60 seconds and a perfect summary.
Wow. I feel like this is one of those moments where asshole just like chimed every time you said it, because it is sort of a pedal tone in the symphony that is this book.
Yeah, if you were playing on a Wurlitz or organ, every bass pedal would be labeled asshole.
And your left hand would be getting a workout.
Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, I'd say that's really the overarching theme of this book is that Jim Morrison's an asshole, but it's okay because he was sexy.
He was a shaman, a poet shaman who looked good in leather pants.
And he didn't want anyone to touch his hair because it had to look like the wing of a bird.
How many scenes are there in this where he explicitly says, "Don't touch my hair"? It's at least 3, right?
Yeah, it happens multiple times. And the first time it's described as he says that he wouldn't take a comb near his hair because he wanted it to look like the wing of a bird. Which, that's an odd aesthetic choice. I just want to have a wing on my head.
I mean, I know not everybody is broken in the brain like I am, so it's probably possible for some people to look at a bird and not think that thing's crawling with lice. But unfortunately, I am broken in that way. So that description did not work well for me.
My points are high and the points are low.
Well, let's go ahead and get into some high points and some low points about this book. We're going to go round robin and start with high points, and we like to let the guest go first. So, if you may, a high point, please.
Definitely, I think the first high point is the foreword, which I normally don't read forewords, but like this is the most, and it's written by one of the authors, Danny Sugerman, who I didn't Google him, but he seems to just be a professional hanger-on. But it's
we'll get into that.
Okay, good. It's like, what is it? It's like, it's only 3 pages, but it's the most fawning thing I've ever read. Like, he's just like, and
I mean, it's what the cold open came out of, right? Where he says a modern day god, is what Jim Morrison is.
Yeah, it's just so, like, and this is, like, what sets the tone of the book. So you know you're in trouble. Like, I knew I was in trouble as soon as I finished it. But in a kind of exciting way, because I knew, like, oh, this is just going to be, like, him lauding anything that Jim Morrison does is brilliant. Like, which he does. Like, this then trickles down to, like, there's a point where he vividly describes childhood drawings that Jim Morrison made. And like, the only one I remember explicitly is it's a drawing of a dude who has a Coke bottle for a dick. And then it ends with like, but few children that age showed like Jim's advanced sense of humor. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like,
yeah. Oh, it's amazing. There's a, like, on the facing page of that, I think, is a story about he and his best friend would record radio commercials all day devoted to the problems of butt picking and masturbation. Such sophisticated humor was unusual. And it was like, what the fuck are you talking about?
I've got like a library full of 4-track cassette tapes I need to share with this author because apparently I'm fucking Nostradamus or something.
Right?
But yeah, yes. I feel like his agenda is made so clear so early that, like, I kind of like that about this book, that it's like, no, like, I love this man, and this is a really long love letter to a dude who I can't tell it to.
So the high point in a lot of ways is radical honesty.
Yes. It's so, I don't know. And it all, like, to me, the entire time I read it, I felt like it was like 90% Danny Sugerman. Like, it just feels like a book that a dude named Danny Sugerman would write.
He also wrote it when he was 24, so I think you're very on the right track here.
So let's get a little bit of insight into who wrote these, because I think it'll be helpful. Jerry Hopkins is a longtime hack for Rolling Stone. He's the,
hey, watch it, buddy. No hacks are at Rolling Stone.
I have a 20-book list of the other books that he's published. Including Asian Aphrodisiacs, Romancing the East, Behind Closed Doors, Thailand Confidential, and Bangkok Babylon.
Oh dear.
So I think I'm safe in calling him a hack. Danny Sugerman is. You call him a professional hanger-on. That's exactly right. He met Jim Morrison when he was like 13, basically moved into the Doors offices, became their fan mail coordinator.
Wait. That's who he's talking about in the book?
This is a big reveal. There's a character in the book named Denny Sullivan.
Oh.
Who
son
is,
of a
in
bitch.
fact, Danny Sugerman.
I see what he did there.
Yeah.
What an asshole. Like, I hate this so much more now.
By the time he was 19, he was strung out on heroin and Iggy Pop's manager in like 1979.
Oof. Yikes.
And I know this because Mr. Sugerman wrote another fabulously sleazy book called Wonderland Avenue that is, unfortunately, something that shares a title with a book about, like, John Holmes as a murderer or something.
Oh, yeah, Wonderland Murders.
Yeah. But anyway, so that kind of tells you who this is written by. A guy whose job it is to sell magazines, and a guy who is genuinely deeply impressed by Jim Morrison.
Danny Sugerman was Iggy Pop's manager
For a few years.
in 1979.
Yeah.
So he presided over all those great decisions that Iggy Pop made in the early 80s.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
Yeah, decisions like, let's do more heroin, let's drive our car into a building, and then let's do some more heroin.
Yeah, it wasn't until later that he was like, hey, I can sell that song about heroin to Prudential for an ad.
Yes. I got a lust for cash.
Okay. My first high point is, I'm going to pronounce this wrong. Peek behind the curtain, folks. I am not a Doors fan. Never have been. But Ray Manzarek, is that how you say it?
Hell yeah.
Okay, awesome. He is the organist in the Doors. I think he comes off really well here. He comes across as a very caring and patient friend who probably put up with way more than he should have. And I liked the descriptions of him. I felt like he was probably a very decent guy who was caught up in a bunch of bullshit. And I think ultimately he deserved much better than being the side man to a spoiled man-child. But that's just the impression the book gave me. A friend of mine let me know earlier that he produced the first 4 or 5 X records.
Yep.
And that's cool as hell, so that's another reason why I guess I like Ray Manzarek. It may just be that any character in a book that stands opposed to Jim Morrison is going to come out looking like a bushel of roses. So.
Yeah, but he's
a literal bushel.
He's Jim's biggest cheerleader, though.
Yeah.
Any interviews you hear with him, he's the one constantly pushing the Jim was a shaman, blah, blah. And it's just dude, I think Tom Sharpling said this on the Best Show, where he was at this point, Ray Manzarek has spent more time talking about Jim Morrison than he did actually knowing Jim Morrison.
Oh, I mean, that's literally true. I mean, that's one of the crazy things about this book is, you forget what it means that somebody died at 27. Mm-hmm. Jim Morrison's entire career basically took place between the years when he was 21 and 27.
Yeah, performing songs.
Those are not good years for most of us dudes. I just want to put that out there.
And he was performing songs that he wrote when he was 19. This book makes it abundantly clear that he basically filled up one notebook with lyrics in his late teens and then just kind of traded on those for the rest of his career. And
I guess we're lucky that there aren't more Doors songs explicitly about the problems of butt picking and masturbation with a Coke bottle penis.
I don't know. That's pretty sophisticated comedy, man. Can't expect that kind of shit from a 19-year-old.
So I guess it's incumbent upon me to do a high point. Again, this one is all my fault, and for about the first 140 pages, I was legitimately enjoying it because it is a very fast, sleazy read. And that's kind of the tone that I remembered. What I remembered was 2 authors who were deeply impressed with Jim Morrison trying to, on one hand, tell you how impressive Jim Morrison is, and on the other hand, give you endless anecdotes demonstrating how deeply unimpressive Jim Morrison was. He's basically the uber older brother. His sense of humor is all about, holding a smaller person down and spitting on them.
Yeah, he farts in his brother's face at multiple times in this, and we're not talking about as teenagers. We're talking about as adults.
Yeah, I mean, he tapes his brother's mouth shut because he's snoring.
That was horrifying. His brother had some weird breathing disorder, and he wakes up and his mouth is taped over.
And Jim's cracking up.
And
that
that's
was
my
a
high point.
That was. I think Jim was laughing at that point in. That was a weird part where he described Jim stole his laughter from a movie he saw, and then he would constantly type out
from a description of Dean Moriarty.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah, so creepy.
Yeah, it's very creepy. It talks a lot about how a lot of his mannerisms were affectations that he lifted from things he had read or things he had seen, and oh man, I knew people like that, and they were not cool to hang out with.
Yeah,
I mean, he's a step away from donning a fedora and calling people "milady," basically, in this. And it's
totally. I totally got that vibe from him. There's a scene where he leaps out of a car and goes and kisses a 14-year-old's hand.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like,
this
this dude, yeah, he, like, if he was around today, he would be, like, a hero to these dudes.
Yeah. So this actually brings me to my second high point. I hate to say it.
Oh, we're okay. We're going to backload the low points this time around.
I think with a book like this, we have no choice.
That's true.
So, I was not shy about telling people I knew that we were going to do this book this week. And so there has been a steady stream of people in my life looking up Doors lyrics and texting them to me to own me, right? And the only reason I mention this, because this is not actually that unusual, but the only reason I mention this is because there has been a certain unanimous quality, and all of them have picked the same line about plucking that dusky jewel, right, out of Hello, I Love You, right? And in this book, it's there's a story told about it. And when my girlfriend Noodles she was just Googling around for Doors lyrics to own me with, and finds this lyric, and the top comment below the lyrics are, "Hi, I'm blah, blah, blah. I moved to LA in like 65 and was hanging around on Venice Beach, and this scrawny little dipshit came up to me and tried to hit on me. And like, I didn't know who he was, so I didn't give him the time of day. And it turns out, like, my friends later told me, don't you know who that is? That's Jim Morrison. He's in the Doors." And it turns out that the song was about her.
Oh, no.
And it said in the thing, this was explicitly about a tall negress that Jim was particularly taken with.
It did say that.
So what kind of asshole would you have to be to look at a woman and be like, well, there's a dusky jewel.
Oh, my.
I'll doff my fedora to that. So getting serially owned about the most embarrassing story in the book is my other high point.
Jim has some problems with race. I think we'll maybe get into this briefly a little more, but he likes the racial slurs. He likes being very insensitive because he thinks it's hilarious.
When he gets frustrated, he likes to drop N-bombs. That's like, it is interesting. This 400-page-ish book, largely set in the immediate aftermath of the civil rights movement, does not include the words civil rights.
Nope. But okay. Let's go on. I guess another high point, Christopher.
Boy, I think I ran out after my first one.
That's understandable. You could do what I do and just be really sarcastic about something you actually don't like.
Yeah, I guess another high point is, and this, like, I remember seeing the Doors movie, like, I saw the Doors movie came out at a perfect time for me. Like, I think I was exactly 14, which is when you're supposed to listen to the Doors and, like, get into them. So, I think a high point for me was, like, comparing, as for some reason that movie is somewhat burned into my head. So, like, I could remember specific scenes from the movie attributed to this, and like how less exotic they were in reality. Like there's the dude who like hands Jim a baby lamb. In the movie, it's like a weird Hare Krishna type dude who looks like he came off the set of Nightbreed, who like hands it to him in the middle of like this thronging crowd. And in this, it was like, no, it was a friend of Jim's, and he just like stood up and handed it to like at the front of the stage.
This raises more questions than it answers. Like, that is one of my favorite moments in this book. There is just a picture of Jim holding a lamb on stage. Who brings a lamb to a rock show, like a festival, an outdoor show in Miami?
Did that lamb grow up to be the death metal goat? Oh no, wait. Lambs grow up to be sheep. Never mind. Wow, that's really strange. Yeah, I'm looking at the picture right now, and that is definitely Jim Morrison with a lamb.
The caption is also really worth noting. It just says, "In Miami with young friend." Just the creepiest way to describe a sleazy-looking guy holding a lamb I can imagine.
Since you mentioned captions, that brings me to my second high point, which is a meta high point, a well that I go to frequently when I really did not enjoy reading the thing I'm reading. So this book was really hard to find. There's not a digital copy of it. No used bookstore seems to carry it around here. The library had a copy, but it's been checked out for about a year and a half, the librarian told me, so I don't want to meet that person. But so
that is either a young woman who's about to make some extremely bad sexual decisions, or a young man who's about to help a lot of women make very bad sexual decisions.
I thought you were going to say a young man who's about to make some very bad musical ones. 'Cause,
we should get into that later. It's my theory that the Doors are the least musically influential band of all time.
I think that's fair. But anyway, let's roll on here. My high point is that I ended up reading a very oddly scanned bootleg ebook of this that definitely someone ran it through some OCR software, optical character recognition, and there are just a ton of transcription errors. That's a callback to Timeline, by the way. But there are just a ton of errors in the book, and one of the strangest things is that instead of everywhere there should be a photograph, there's just in brackets the title of the section of the book, which I didn't realize until about halfway through. So I'm just reading this, and then, in the middle of a sentence, it'll be hyphenated, a bunch of blank space, and then on a line by itself, the bow is drawn back. Then a couple other lines of blank space. Then it goes on to talking about, like, Jim Morrison fucking college girls or whatever. But, like, yeah, that was pretty great. It took me until I got to the section called, like, The Arrow Flies that I realized, like, oh, shit, that's the title. And it was mostly just because Collision told me that after I sent him a really cryptic text about what does the bow is drawn back mean. So.
I also really like that because this book is trying so not at all to have any structure. Even though it gives itself this like weird 3-act structure, the bow is drawn, the arrow flies, the arrow falls. But within that, there is no structure to the book. It's just the world's largest pile of anecdotes.
I think the impression that I got was that the bow is drawn was supposed to be about his pre-Doors life.
Yeah.
And then after that, he just kind of lost the thread because Jim Morrison died while the Doors were still very popular.
Right.
There's not really a 3-act structure there.
Yeah.
Also, these are like the longest chapters I've ever read. Like every time I would get to a new it'd be like chapter 4, and it's like I just read like 60 pages.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, and I was like, it was amongst other things, like weirdly took me out of it. Like, there's like no decision making going on here. It's just like, okay, we'll stop here.
There is a kind of a tenet of journalism that you're not supposed to put everything you know into your story, because that, number one, hints that you don't really know what the story is. And, 2, you should always know more than the reader does, right? And I don't think these guys left anything out.
No. Well, I mean, Danny Sugerman just wants to tell you about all the cool things he knows about Jim Morrison.
Yeah.
Guys, I met Jim Morrison when I was 13 and he let me read his poetry.
He gave me Stones tickets.
Yeah.
He's in the most dickish, big brotherish way possible by first making me literally beg.
One last caption thing is, I think my favorite caption was something like, Jim shows a rare smile with his favorite floppy hat.
Oh, yeah.
A rare smile.
I don't know, something about it was like, I really do hate this guy.
Yeah.
It also says a lot about the way the book is written that you could easily interpret that as Jim and a hat smiling at each other. Okay, low points. Collision, why don't you lead off?
Okay, so, my main low point is that I made you guys slog through this awful thing. And to try to atone, I'm going to try to give you each a brand new low point. I had some trouble finding a physical copy of this. Finally, Noodles came through and gave me one. Thank you. Because I was having horrible trouble with the e-version. I just couldn't deal. But while I was shopping, I did pick up a copy of Mr. Morrison's first book of posthumous poetry.
Oh, yeah.
Called Wilderness Volume 1. And I'm going to leave it to you guys to pick what this low point is going to be. Is it going to be general condescension? Or just plain dumb?
I'm a big fan of just plain dumb.
Yeah, that seems about right.
All right, so here is a poem by Jim Morrison that was my main low point.
Okay.
I fear that he's been Maimed, beyond all recognition, he hears them come and murmur over his corpse. Street pizza.
Street pizza, baby. That was more like Glenn Danzig than.
I think Glenn Danzig is like one of the. We'll get to that later. There are some people who are deeply influenced by Mr. Morrison, I think. So yeah, that having to read that fucking thing for this show was about as low as a low point gets.
All right. You want to go next, Chris?
Sure. So definitely a huge low point was they constantly get into like really detailing these minutia conversations that Jim has with people as a way of showing off how clever he is. And like there's nothing clever about any of them. Like it's literally he's like the worst guy you went to high school with, or like the coworker that you can't stand who's constantly like talking in different fake voices.
Oh,
and
yeah.
just quoting. I worked with a guy once who he would at points he would break into a Walter Brennan type affectation. And I was like, who are you doing that for? Like everybody who works here is in their 20s. Like they don't know who you're imitating.
Yeah, like the book really tries to build Jim Morrison up as like this, intellectual jester who with no regard for, society's mores. But like the truth is that if he was around now, he'd be the guy doing a Borat imitation at a party.
Yeah, but they never pass up a chance to recount a conversation line for line, and it's always just like Jim, like just it's supposed to show how clever he is, and also like how anti-authoritarian he is. And it's neither. Like, it's just like a drunk dude who's just saying something that he thinks is clever, and now, because these guys love him so much, they have deemed it to be clever.
There's like a part here where Jim is on a bus and tells a horrible joke, like just a really bad joke about dogs' assholes. And,
yeah.
It's like 3 or 4 paragraphs, a quote-unquote word for word, but obviously it's just them, like, embellishing some joke Jim's told them, and it's not funny.
And all of these conversations are recorded with lots of ums and uhs and pauses and, like, descriptions of the accent that he would put on for various times. Like, there's this... They go to the well a bunch of times of saying that, like, when he was nervous, he would go into this purposefully dumb-sounding voice so that you couldn't tell if he was serious or not, when he would be saying things like, "Do you want to touch my pecker?"
Yeah, you know who does that? Assholes.
Yeah.
Like, that's true. That is fully like the, hey, man, let's kiss. Just kidding.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you're going to do it.
I mean, I'm not gay.
About that bus scene... I'm glad you brought that up, because that's one of the...
I'm not.
It's like a part A, I guess, a low point is that they make sure to point out that, like, Jim's telling this story, and slowly, everyone on the bus, like, started listening. Like, ooh. And but then they point out when he gets to the end, like, everybody groans, and it's like, But then, like, by the time he was in the middle of his next story, they were all listening again, and it's like... They take pains to be like, he was so magnetic even when he was telling, like, dog anus jokes.
Yeah. That's the weirdest thing about this book is, I know that the literary moment for deconstruction has kind of passed, but this book undercuts every point it makes. Like, one of the weird notes that this book strikes is it is constantly saying how courtly and what a Southern gentleman Jim Morrison is.
Yeah.
And it's always within literally one page of him either pissing on somebody's rug, pulling a knife on a woman, pulling a knife on a different woman, pulling a knife on a third woman, stealing somebody's drugs, punching somebody and then hiding behind something bigger. Like every single time it presents you with this judgment of him and then immediately provides the evidence by which you know that judgment is wrong.
He's a demigod, dude. Most likely Loki.
No, Dionysus, dude. Come on.
Oh, You're right, yeah. Or I was going to say maybe coyote, because that's what Jim Morrison would have wanted you to say.
Yeah, guy really puts the sham in shaman. Thank you. I worked all day on that.
He really puts the white guy in 1/16th Cherokee.
Ouch.
Okay, so my low point, you just kind of alluded to it here with your statement about pulling knives on 3 different women. I believe it's 4.
The first time he didn't pull a knife, he just threatened to. So.
He just, he said, wouldn't it suck if I disfigured you, basically, in so many words.
I'm going to cut you so nobody else will ever love you like I do.
Is he the fucking Joker? Like, that's... But... Yeah, so that's basically my low point is that this
hippie Joker would be kind of a fun twist on the character.
It's like a Quincy Punk, but the Dragnet hippie Joker. Pardon me. No, I think that like ultimately this book really functions as like a 350 plus page apologia for toxic masculinity, but it's a really specific type that I think gets ignored a lot because it's not kind of like the professional football player, like jock, like hyper masculine style. It's more like this kind of I worship Rimbaud and I'm going to be tragic and force you into a shit ton of emotional labor, but it's okay because I'm fucking genius or whatever. And it bugs me. It bugs the shit out of me just reading this dude being lionized for being a horrible person. Like, ugh.
This is exactly my last low point is, if you like women at all, this is an awful read. There's 2 separate stories that are just like too awful and dark for the podcast to cover, and there's lots of gross, toxic shit about groupies. And then one of the most colossal low points for me in this entire book was this following passage, which is sort of the framing is Jim's getting his shit together. Jim resumed his old affairs, calling his sometime girlfriends and more Pamela Zarubica or Gail Enochs. Jim's days as a sexual philanthropist were largely past.
Come on.
Although he saw Anne, Pamela, and Gail only 2 or 3 times a month at most, the relationships were well established. I mean, just every syllable of that is gross, and the biggest low point has to be the phrase sexual philanthropist.
Yeah. Oh, Jesus. Well, I mean,
rarely has banging a groupie been worse described.
It's once again toxic masculinity, but it's like it's the same kind of mindset that leads to teenage boys like talking about girls like, oh, she's not that hot, but I'd let her suck my dick. Like you're doing her a favor. I don't know. It's idiot talk. It's idiot talk, my friends. I don't like it one bit.
Well, it's also, I mean, it fits because the guys who are writing it are totally cool with it. You can tell that like these 2 dudes are not fans of women either. Like the fact that like Pamela Coulson, his longtime abusive other, like she just shows up in the book. There's no explanation. Like there's more explanation of how he met his friend like Babe than there is about how he met the supposed love of his life. And then they're constantly talking about like what a nag she was. Like she didn't want Jim drinking constantly. Like what a bitch. And like
this frigid harpy didn't want him to kill himself.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Like I got the sense that they were almost like jealous of her, so like they were taking it out on her in the book.
Oh, extremely.
That's fucking incisive, and I think you're so right. Like so much of it reads like this girl that Jim liked to hang out with more than us. She was bad.
I think everything you need to know about their relationship is late. Again, it's late in the book. Jim, the frame is Jim's getting his shit together, and they're just hanging around the apartment. Jim and Pamela and their dog Sage. Side note to imagine how fucking miserable this poor goddamn dog must have been.
Oh shit.
But it's this big floppy golden retriever, and Jim gets down on the floor and sings to it, and it sings back, and then he sings a different note, and it sings a different note, and then Pamela comes in, and he yells at her for ruining it.
I'm not sure if we've ever talked about this on the show before. Have we talked about the movie Dig, the documentary Dig about Dandy Warhols?
I could talk about that all day long.
Okay, because one of the pivotal characters in it is the front man for the John Cougar concentration camp group. I'm drawing a blank on his name.
Anton?
Yeah, Anton. Yeah, he is this character. And there's a scene in that movie I'll never forget where he's living in the attic of his friends who are part of their quote-unquote rival band. They're friendly rivals, but he doesn't seem to think it's friendly and yada yada. But he's living in their attic. They're downstairs having friends over and having some kind of party. And there's footage of this, I guess, from the party, him barging down from the attic and yelling at everyone, "Silence! The artist needs silence to work!" And then storming back upstairs and slamming the little attic crawl space. And that's Jim Morrison. Like, he's that guy. It's the worst. Oh, man. Okay. But yeah, watch Dig. It's really entertaining. Kind of sad.
Love Dig. Yes. But good.
Yeah, well, we still have a couple more low points we need to get to if we're actually doing this correctly. We do, because believe it or not, that was all just a discussion hinged on your low point.
Wow.
Oh,
So
okay.
I need to get into my low point number 2 briefly here, which kind of relates to that, and it's just the credulity of the authors is fucking out of control, and it's to the point where, you know, as we've talked about a bunch, they really recast these assholic statements as being like these pure indications of the genius mind at work. Like, there's a point where they talk about how cool it was that whenever he moved into a new place, he would quote unquote test his roommates. And he would do it by playing Elvis records really loud and then insisting that everyone be perfectly silent while he sat with his eyes closed and listened to them in a very performative way. And like, that is such a fucking obnoxious dickhead thing to do. And to be writing this book and not realize that that's an obnoxious dickhead thing to do and instead be like, you could tell he was a genius because of the way he manipulated the social environment around. It's like, no, dude, he was a fucking prick. Like, all right, anyway. So that was my last low point. Any more low points before we move on?
God, there's so many.
Just let's condense it to its purest form.
Okay, I guess, and I'm sure it's looking at this book through the lens of nowadays, but like, there's just some really egregious shit in this book that just like gets a real pass from the authors. Like they talk about how often Jim drops the N-word, and like at one point, like, you know, they refer to it as like, you know, with a dash of ethnic slur, like that's somehow like really cool. And like
this recipe is very, very delightful. You'll love it. It's just a dash of ethnic slur.
You might even say it's a spicy meatball. Oh.
But then they countermand, like they constantly point out like, oh, like, you know, Jim went to like down by the docks and like talked to like, you know, the homeless black people down there. Like, he was so great. Like, it's just like this weird transformation of like anybody who did that nowadays, you'd be like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Is like lauded.
And to jump in there, not only did they describe him doing that, it also says in the same paragraph that he took great delight in introducing people to his friends, in scare quotes.
Yeah.
So not only is he going down to the docks to have patronizing conversations with homeless black men, he's also using them as social currency to freak out the squares. He's a fucking asshole.
Yeah. And then like, like there's a story that gets blown right by where he basically flashes children on Halloween. Like, he's wearing a cape, and then he opens the door and pulls the cape away, and he's naked. Like, and like,
I mean, we've all done that. Am I right?
Yeah. And then quickly,
there's another point
are
where
you going to
he's
talk
like,
about the 10-year-old?
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. Go ahead. You can fucking bite this bullet instead.
Because I made notes. I made notes to write down like the worst shit, and like flashing kids in Halloween is very quickly followed by hand on a 10-year-old's knee, and like this long drawn out story of Jim being on a bus and putting his hand on a 10-year-old girl's knee, and then like doing his dumb guy voice to be like, I ain't doing nothing, like, until he gets kicked off the bus rightfully. And it's like, oh, like, look at how Jim challenges authority. It's like, it's so maddening. I just, at that point, I was like, shit, I still have like 200 pages of this to go.
You were like, shit, I still have to break on through to the other side of this book.
That story, which, I mean, is quite literally Jim Morrison sexually harassing a 10-year-old on a bus to get a rise out of the people around him, is in the same exact section as the Elvis story I told earlier. Yeah. Because the reason he did that is that his roommates were on the bus, and then afterwards he would act like he was super pals with them, so everyone else would be like, ew, who are those people who are friends with the gross guy? Which, like, A, I don't believe that's true.
Yeah.
But B, the authors seem to think these two acts are comparable. You know, like, they're both just crazy ways of fucking with your new roommates. It's like, no, one of them involved a 10-year-old girl who was an innocent bystander in this whole fucking situation. She had no roommate beef, dude.
She did not ask to be part of your guerrilla psychodrama pushing the boundaries of good manners, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, earlier I said that he would be the guy quoting Borat.
Yeah.
But I've realized it's not that. He would be the head of Improv Anywhere.
Yeah. By the way, what they do? Not improv.
No, not at all. If you have a series,
highly structured, highly prescriptive.
If you have a series of beats written down on a piece of paper, that's not improv. No, but on that note, let's go ahead and take a break here and work on our heralds. So we'll be back. You know that it would be untrue. You know that I would be a liar if I were to say to you, this book is not incredibly dire. Oh, shit. Not cool. What did we just talk about? weren't we just having a break talking about improv? Yes, and, guys, yes, and.
Yeah, but I mean, the problem is eventually you just assimilate Jim Morrison's sense of humor, which is 100% no selling other people's jokes, and then immediately saying something like, I'd like to get laid.
Oh, I get it.
You did it again, Jimbo.
That Jim, life of the party. Always with the pithy remark at the appropriate time.
Then I'm going to pass out and pee on your rug.
All right. That spells hero to me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're still talking about No One Here Gets Out Alive. It's about time, though, to roll into some segments and games. So let's start out with the most popular podcasting segment in the entire lizard dimension. Dramatic readings.
Dramatic readings. We're gonna make it sound important. Dramatic readings. Yeah, I got some words for you.
All right, so dramatic readings, we're going to take parts of this book and make them sound important, which shouldn't be hard considering the authors of this book seem to think that everything that went between Jim Morrison's lips and entered the world in the form of words was literally a message from God. So, yeah, this shouldn't be too difficult. Collision, why don't you set us off?
All right. Jim and the other doors wanted to be taken seriously, so their interviews sounded rather like college bowl sessions. The interview with Newsweek's man in Los Angeles in October when they returned from New York was a good example. There are things you know about, said Ray, quoting Jim, and things you don't, the known and the unknown, and in between are the doors. That's us. Later, this line would be attributed to William Blake. It's a search, Jim said, an opening of one door after another. As yet, there's no consistent philosophy or politics. Sensuousness and evil is an attractive image to us now, but think of it as a snakeskin that will be shed sometime. Our work, our performing, is a striving for metamorphosis. Right now, I'm more interested in the dark side of life, the evil thing, the dark side of the moon, the nighttime. But in our music, it appears to me that we're seeking, striving, trying to break through to some cleaner, freer realm. It's like a purification ritual in the alchemical sense. First, you have to have the period of disorder, chaos, returning to a primeval disaster region. Out of that, you purify the elements and find a new seed of life, which transforms all life and all matter and the personality until, finally, hopefully, you emerge and marry all these dualisms and opposites. Then you're not talking about evil and good anymore, but something unified and pure. Our music and personalities, as seen in the performance, are still in a state of chaos and disorder, with maybe an incipient element of purity kind of starting. Lately, when we've appeared in person, it's started to merge together. Then he delivered his best slogan yet. Think of us as erotic politicians.
Whoa. Oh. I hurt inside. Oh boy.
So now you're all pregnant with Jim's mind purification seeds.
I feel like something from Alien just happened here.
Yeah. It's worse. It's a college sophomore just happened.
Okay. So Chris, are you ready?
Yes, I believe I am.
All right, let's get dramatic.
All right, I'm going to read from my favorite part, which is the foreword, because it's so breathless. I love it. All right, this is written only by Danny Sugerman, from Beverly Hills, California. Morrison changed my life. He changed Jerry Hopkins' life. The truth is, Jim Morrison turned a lot of lives around, not only those that were in his immediate orbit, but those he reached as the controversial singer/lyricist of the Doors. This book is the coverage of Jim's life, not his meaning. Yet we gain insight into the man simply by seeing where he came from and how he got where he was headed. Getting hip to Morrison in the first place, back in 1967, which was when most of us first heard from him, was no easy task. It involved more than a bit of soul-searching. Identifying with Jim meant you were an outsider who preferred to look in. Rock and roll has always attracted a lot of misfits with identity problems, but Morrison took being an outsider one step further. He said, in effect, that's okay. We like it here. It hurts, and it's hell, but it's also a hell of a lot more real than the trip I see you on. He pointed his finger at the parents, teachers, and the other authority figures around the land. He did not...
The literal PTA.
He did not make vague references. Angered by the fraud, he did not imply. He blatantly, furiously accused. Then he showed us what it was really like. Quote, people are strange when you're a stranger. Faces are ugly when you're alone. This next part kills me because it is such a reach. He showed us what could be. Quote, we could be so good together. I'll tell you about the world we'll invent. Wanton world without lament. Enterprise, expedition, invitation, and invention. He communicated with emotion, rage, grace, and wisdom. He offered very little in the way of compromise. Getting in was definitely not Jim's concern. Getting past or by was not Jim's concern. Jim's only motivation was to break through it all. He'd read about those others who had, and he believed it was possible, and he wanted to take us with him. Quote, we'll be inside the gates by evening, he sang. The first few magical years of the Doors' life were little more than Jim and his band taking their audiences on abbreviated visits to another place. A territory that transcended good and evil. A sensuous, dramatic, musical landscape. Of course, the ultimate breakthrough to the other side is death.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Can I follow this up with one tiny poem by Mr. Morrison?
Oh, please do.
Where'd you learn about Satan, out of a book. Love out of a box.
Sweet.
See, it works on a lot of levels.
Oh, man. Okay. So, for my dramatic reading here, this is about Jim and his relationships with women. I have this in my notes as this is where Jim breaks up with two women and then makes a grandpa joke. So, Patricia remembers the final day. It was pure hell. It started at 4 at some topless, bottomless co-ed bar where we had so many tequilas with beer chasers that the bartender was sending every third drink over free. Last I remembered, I'd had 14. Then we went to Jim's recording session with the friend with whom I'd been staying, and she made a play for Jim. I was furious and told her, I don't care what you do after I get home, but at least have the grace to wait until then. Jim was the complete polygamist, and the friend was really hot, so he was easy to lure away. They were at Poppy Studios, where they were mixing the Doors album, and the friend went to the John. 5 minutes later, Jim left, and 5 minutes after that, Patricia found them embracing outside on the lawn. Get up, Patricia snapped, standing over them. Jim looked up at her sleepily, smiling. Come on, up, both of you, up. The friend reached up and pulled Patricia down. For a moment, the three bodies reshaped themselves to absorb the flesh and bones of the others. What the fuck? That's really creepy.
That is okay, first off, that's very Cronenberg. And second off, you weren't there, bro, who's writing this.
Patricia regained her composure and said steadily, let me talk to Jim alone. The friend left and Jim said, listen, honey, you know I'm too drunk to screw tonight. Just let me sleep with her. Look, said Patricia, it's my last night in L.A. I'm going home tomorrow, and I'll probably never see you again. Jim bristled at the possessiveness. Well, I'm not going to spend another night with you. Fine, but you're bloody well not going to spend it with her. Back at the apartment, Jim began a search of the cupboards and kitchen drawers. The girls asked why. Oh, said Jim, I'm looking for knives and scissors so you can castrate me. One of you gets my cock, the other my body. Who gets your soul, Jim? Oh, I'm going to keep that, if you don't mind.
Oh, the incisive wit.
Burn.
Can I read a 2-sentence thing that contrasts well with that, which is about female infidelity?
Oh, sure.
And this book's perspective thereon? Mm-hmm. After other fights, Pamela would get whacked out of her skull on downers, or occasionally smack, and be seen in public, tongue wrestling with a bartender from the Beverly Hills Polo Lounge, or under a table at the Troubadour Bar, moving from party to party in the rich rock star circuit, a sprawl in the backseat of limousines playing rock and roll finger pie.
Rock and roll finger pie.
This is the worst book I've ever fucking read.
That's my favorite Ted Nugent song.
I still prefer Stranglehold, but you know, your position is defensible, I think.
Oh boy. Okay, so we've done some
dramatical readings.
I almost said grammatic readings, which that's a whole different thing. That's a made-up word, just like the word acoustical, which appears several times in this book. It says, like, they performed on acoustical instruments.
Hey, man, Tesla and I believe that a 5-man acoustical jam is totally a thing.
No, Google it. Both of them are 5-man acoustic jam. You're having the Berenstain Bears effect, dude.
Yeah, in my timeline, it's acoustical, bro.
No, it's just acoustic. 5-man acoustic jam.
And in my timeline, people give a shit about Tesla, bro.
I still like Tesla.
Sacramento's finest?
If we're gonna criticize the writing, like I made sure to note this down that he repeats the exact same line, except for one word, or I guess two. Like there's every time he describes them playing in the early days, like it's always like one. That was my favorite. Another high point of the book was every time he printed lyrics, I could just skip right past them.
Yep.
But he's like, for the first one, he's like, even the go-go dancers were mesmerized. And then he describes later, I think it's the same song. He's constantly talking about the end, and they're playing the end somewhere else. And he's like, even the waitresses were mesmerized. Like,
yeah.
And I refuse to believe that. Like, I refuse to believe the Doors were ever like so amazing that like some woman who's doing her job is gonna like stop and watch. Like there's nothing about. He's like, oh wow, like this 8-minute song full of fucking gibberish. Like, this really speaks to me.
But that's the thing that you're totally missing, man. What women primarily like musically is carnival organ, mediocre Spanish guitar played electrically, and some of the worst jazz drumming you've ever heard.
Yeah. Hey, Chuck, it's your cousin Gertrude. You know that sound you've been looking for?
All right, this actually brings us to something that we were talking about. Obviously, the Doors were not musically that influential. You don't hear a lot of carnival organ on the radio today. You don't hear a lot of like pseudo flamenco guitar on the radio today.
I feel like maybe Meatloaf took a lot of influence from the Doors.
Maybe.
Yeah, the whole like kind of rock as theater thing.
Yeah.
But that's not a great legacy to leave behind ultimately. Like,
I'll have you know, Jim Steinman wrote a song for Sisters of Mercy.
he did,
which is a fact you told me.
He did a
whatever.
bunch of shit for Sisters of Mercy, but yeah.
But anyway, let's talk about the real and nasty and pernicious influence that Jim Morrison at least has had on America's masculine population in a little thing we like to call Most Famous Fan.
They're rich and they're famous, but they read books too. They're rich and they're famous, but they're only a little better than you.
So I've got a couple to propose. I mean, I think the thing that we also forget is that the Doors were an LA band, and LA is really a universe unto itself. So there's probably 10 million really huge Jim Morrison fans in LA who we've never heard of. But I think of the following three, who would you pick? Axl Rose?
That was like my first thought.
Yeah. Glenn Danzig?
Yes.
Or, and this is maybe a little controversial, Shia LaBeouf.
Well, right now I can't say anything bad about Shia LaBeouf because he's been shouting at Nazis on the
Nazi
internet.
shouter.
Yeah, so that's fucking awesome.
And in fact, go to jail for scratching Nazi Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah, so big ups to you. I'm not going to make fun of you today. I think I got to say Glenn Danzig for sure, because even earlier when I was trying to do a Jim Morrison impression and it came out like Glenn Danzig, there's a reason that happens. Like, Glenn Danzig is just a shoutier Jim Morrison, really.
I mean, if Glenn Danzig had any balls, he would have followed up Mother with a song called Father.
I want to fuck you. Like, so many points in this book, like, talk about how so many people in his life were scandalized by his song that includes the lyric, Mother, I want to fuck you. Like, yeah.
Mother, I want to fuck you all night.
All night, yeah. Like, I wonder why people in Jim Morrison's life would be scandalized by that lyric, especially when he's out in interviews like, oh, my shit is real.
Yeah. My parents are dead. Yeah. But is there anybody who should be on that list who's not?
I was thinking hard about this, and it's tough because, like, I feel like if you're a giant fan of Jim Morrison nowadays, you do that shit on the DL. Like, you're not advertising it, you know? So I was thinking about it, and I'm like, who's a musician that kind of embodies kind of this persona? And I think it's The Weeknd. Like, I think The Weeknd is a stealth Jim Morrison fan.
Or what's his name who died a couple of years ago? Actually, only died like 2015, I think. Stone Temple Pilots.
Oh, Scott Weiland.
Oh, yeah.
Scott
For a
Weiland,
second, I thought you were talking about Nate Dogg for some reason. I don't think Nate Dogg knew this guy existed.
I think he did. I think Nate Dogg would occasionally bump his head and be like, when the music's over, that's got a good hook.
He's smoking a fat-ass Kush joint right now.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm going to give it to Shia LaBeouf for demonstrating that it's possible to channel Jim Morrison, but use your powers for the forces of good rather than evil. And this is only probationary because Shia LaBeouf has been a shithead for like a decade now. And he's done exactly one thing I think is good. But, probationary. Probationary.
I just want to remind people, go back a few episodes ago. I totally recommended an Interview Magazine profile with Shia LaBeouf way before it was cool to admit that Shia LaBeouf was actually kind of dope. So I just want to get my props for that. And you should also check out that interview. It's really interesting. That's what made me turn the corner on him.
There you go.
But yeah. Most famous fan. I
kind of like The Weeknd. Chris, do you have anybody?
All that pops into my head is Eddie Vedder.
Ooh,
Like
yeah.
that, definitely like the poet shaman type thing. Like Eddie
Too
Vedder.
real.
Yeah, like I don't know. The in terms of like, I feel like Jim Morrison at some point would have. Maybe he did. Like, it was a dude who, when he sang, like, he hugged himself.
Or that's Moby.
I can't picture Moby actually standing in front of a crowd. Like,
yeah, that's true.
He feels like, yeah, he would just like be behind a desk at his shows.
There has to be some kind of willful sexual element, or it can't be influenced by
That's
Morrison.
true.
And there is no less sexual being than Moby.
You don't appreciate the raw carnal sexuality of Moby?
I do, but the thing is, I don't think he would appreciate me appreciating that. I think he would be
gotcha.
like, ew, I would rather play Mario Kart.
That sounds about right.
I don't know if Moby actually likes Mario Kart.
I think it's probably a little too consumerist for old Mobes.
Oh, he's a Smash Brothers guy. I gotcha.
When Mobes wants to race cars, he builds them at like soapbox derby style.
That's actually really fun. I basically quit Cub Scouts because I came in second at the Pinewood Derby one year and was just devastated and sad.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're always competing with these kids, at least for me, these kids whose dads, like, their job was like some kind of engineering and shit.
Yeah.
And they'd like get the shit, they didn't make that themselves.
Yeah.
Like,
I made that shit.
Yeah.
I drilled those fucking holes.
I awkwardly nailed on those four wheels at bizarre angles.
Those were cool angles, Jay, not bizarre angles.
Hey, so since we're keeping shit hip and fresh for the youth, after this, you want to talk about maybe reading Archie comics at the barbershop?
Yeah, absolutely. And that'll certainly be a fave for everybody. But for right now, let's do a quick "What is your fave?"
What is your fave? What is your fave? When you're presented with a list of options, what is your fave?
So we've talked a bunch about this, and I hate to put you on the spot, and I know you don't have anything prepared, but what is your favorite moment where the authors say something wildly congratulatory or positive about Jim Morrison that is within a page contradicted by a story they tell about Jim Morrison?
Oh, man.
I got one.
Oh, go for it.
I can't remember where it is. I think it's when he goes to... I think it's when after he moves to Paris, and like he goes over to somebody's house and he passes out in his chair, and then they're like, somebody's like, Jim, and then they like look under the table and can see that he has his dick out and he's pissing.
That is literally the page I'm looking at. It is page 276, and it goes like this. Here's midway through the first paragraph. All he remembers today is that one minute Jim was a Southern gentleman, dispensing interesting stories and good manners.
Wearing a linen suit and drinking mint juleps on the patio.
And the next he was a raging drunk, standing on a couch, tearing at the expensive paintings on the wall. Yeah, and then like right below that, it's this cute story where, oh Christ, look, Leon soon cried. Look at Jim. Leon leaped from his seat. Slumped unconscious in his chair, Jim had managed to extract his penis from his pants and was pissing on the rug. Jesus! Bill rushed across the room, grabbed a large crystal goblet, and held it under the stream. Large crystal goblet. To his surprise, Jim filled it. Bill took another goblet from the table, and Jim filled that too. Then a third one. Leon, Frank, Kathy, and Sherry were falling down with laughter. Afterward, Frank and Kathy took Jim to the door's office and dropped him, still asleep, on the office couch. Okay, first off, fuck that couch.
Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, so I was thinking about it, and for me, it's the section where they describe, basically the authors describe how Jim Morrison was being incredibly altruistic by agreeing to record a PSA about not doing speed. And it's first of all, it's a foundation called the Do It Now Foundation, which I really enjoyed. And I'm glad that they experienced more success than their predecessor, the Get to the Chopper initiative.
Oh, man.
Sorry.
Deep cut.
But, yeah, so it's they're like doing a campaign called Speed Kills. And the idea is that musicians are going to talk about how it's bad to do speed. And the authors go out of their way for about a page and a half to talk about how Jim Morrison is being so altruistic because even though he does drugs, he's going to record a commercial that tells kids not to do drugs. And then immediately from there, they go on to describe the scenario while they're recording this PSA, where Morrison just intentionally sabotages the entire thing by being like, "Speed kills. Just smoke weed, you guys," and stuff like that. And he does this to the point where they can't get a decent recording, and then they leave without it. So congratulations to the altruist Jim Morrison.
Yeah, and it's explicitly, he does all this because Denny Sullivan, who we now know is just for some inexplicable reason, fictionalized version of Danny Sugerman, would be disappointed in him if he had some kind of anti-drug stance because he does drugs. So yeah. Jim Morrison submarines a PSA because he doesn't want to let down a 15-year-old.
That's really perfect, though. Like, that's the Doors encapsulated.
Yeah, it kind of
like
is.
Really, like, perfectly idealistic to a 14, 15-year-old. And then you grow up and realize, like, wow, what a pack of assholes.
I think that's 100% accurate. And on that note, let's go ahead and go to a break. All right, we did it. We got out of here alive. The titular here.
My God, nobody gets out of here alive, Jay. This is unprecedented.
Oh my goodness, Maggle. But we did it. Yeah, we're all still standing. And so this is the point in the show where we talk about things we liked more than this, which should be pretty easy for me since I could think of like several horrible experiences I've had in the past couple weeks that I liked more than this. But recommendations, Collision?
Yeah, I'm going to give a quick shout out to the fact that this book is written by two people who I don't think can actually read, as evidenced by the fact that they refer to a rather famous Joan Didion piece about hanging out with the Doors while they're recording a song as favorable. That piece is collected in the White Album. I encourage you to go find that piece and read it for yourselves and see what you think the tone of it was.
Favorable is a stretch.
Yeah, but my real recommendation for this is by and about a guy who was a genuine musical revolutionary who definitely did actually make legitimately great music and change the way things were done. And that is Charles Mingus in his book, Beneath the Underdog. I should note it is a really rough read in some places. His sexual politics in particular are not as far away from Jim Morrison's as you might like, but it's an absolutely magnificent book by an incredible composer and an incredibly fascinating person, and I couldn't recommend that more highly.
Cool. How about you, Chris?
I guess sticking with musical type books, I would recommend, if you can find it, the Dave Davies autobiography.
Cool.
Can't remember what it's called, but there is once he gets abducted by a UFO, the book becomes very strange. Like,
I beg your pardon?
Yeah, it's a lot of it is about being in the kinks, but then there's a lot about being abducted by a UFO and the life changes that brought on. So, and it's all like, there's no gag, like he totally believes it. And he has talked about it in interviews many times, but, I don't know that it's a great book, but it's certainly much more interesting than this one. Like there are things in it that like you will not make you hate everybody in it. Like, so better ways to spend your time. That or there's a book of essays by a rock writer named Nick Kent called The Dark Stuff, which there's some Iggy stuff in there, so it ties in, I guess, through Danny Sugerman. But like, it's a really good like group of essays that again, like, I don't know, this made me never want to listen to the Doors again, and never think about Jim Morrison again. So like,
It's kind of a win then.
yeah,
Hey-o.
I mean, I haven't really thought about them much since, I grew up. But but yeah, I like I like stuff that actually like writing about music that actually inspires me. So I'd say that, or that the first half of the Eagles documentary.
For me, I'm just gonna go. This is completely a reactionary pick because as I was editing last episode, I realized like we were really harsh on nerd things, and I just wanted to be a little friendlier about this stuff. And I was thinking about the fact that lately there's been kind of a glut of things based on video games, like like movies and books and shit like that based on video games, and that's a horrible trend. But I discovered some video games that are based on a book, and I really enjoyed it. It's a mobile series of games called Sorcery with an exclamation mark. They're based on a series of books by this dude Steve Jackson, who in the 1980s put out a bunch of like choose your own adventure novels that involve dice rolling and shit like that. So they were almost like a single player tabletop role playing game.
That was perfect. It was D&D for kids with no friends.
Exactly.
And I say that as a kid who
I
played several
always-
of them alone in Reno, Nevada.
Yep.
I
Me
read
too.
all those books and never used dice. I just skipped that part.
Yeah, they were called the
Cheater.
Fighting Fantasy books, but then
Yeah,
he did
yeah.
this series later on called Sorcery, and there's now a series of it's 4 games. They're so much fun. They're basically those books, but you can play them on your phone, and they've done some really cool stuff with the interface where it's really fun and entertaining. Also contains some of the best writing in video games, probably because the writing was originally not in a video game. Heyo. So yeah, check that shit out. And that was me extending an olive branch to people who like video games. We don't hate you. I play lots of video games. It's okay, everyone.
Also, there's no such thing as nerds. It's not a culture. And if you like video games, you're a bad person.
Shut up.
No. I'm just joshing you.
But yeah, so man,
Sorry, it's just too easy.
I'm thoroughly insulted, sir. I demand satisfaction.
Buying shit isn't an identity. No, I'm gonna chill out. Those books were and are awesome. I actually had a long email thread with one of my oldest buddies a couple of weeks ago trying to figure out which ones we had and hadn't read, which is actually harder than you'd think somehow.
Because they're all named like the Sword of fucking...
Kankankar.
Yeah, the Sword of Tharlassian.
Yeah, the dungeon of it has a big, and I'm like, I remember the cover was green. I think there was a monster on it.
There
I
were,
died a lot.
2 or 3 superfluous apostrophes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so fun.
But yeah, so I think that's about it. We do want to thank our guests for being on the show. So where can people keep in touch with you and what you're doing if they're so inclined?
I guess the best place is on Twitter. I'm at xtop, XTOP. Or you can go to my website if you're a person who still goes to websites, which is ChristopherSebela.com. And I'm also on LinkedIn, so you can hit me up there.
Number one influencer in LinkedIn. How does that work? You just vote on topics? Because I know that at some point someone said I was a number one influencer on Bulldogs, which made me feel pretty happy.
That's a good endorsement.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a good endorsement.
It is.
What's your clout score, though?
Oh, I don't know. The last time I checked Clout was when they stopped sending me gift cards for Wendy's. Well, thank you so much for being on the show, Christopher.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So I understand we got a lot of letters.
So many letters.
A, letter B, letter C, letter D, letter E, letter F, letter G, letter, got a lot of letters.
All right. on with the correspondence.
All right. This has a subject that goes a little something like this. You have come to a class called Philosophy 101 Whip Crack.
Oh, no.
And it is from Ciara, fake last name. Hey guys, me and my boyfriend both love the show. I thought you might find John Norman's, aka John Lang's, Rate My Professor page kind of funny.
Oh, what?
Keep being awesome. Ciara, fake last name. So yeah, as you may or may not know, the guy who wrote all those shitty-ass gore novels has long been a philosophy professor.
They let this person interact with impressionable youth?
Indeed. And we're going to hear from 3 of those youths right now, if you like.
The Utes, Your Honor?
The Utes, exactly. Nothing like a timely My Cousin Vinny reference. I was there for it. I hope you were too, listeners.
I'm nothing if not on the cutting edge.
Fucking Fred Gwynn worked on the Harvard Lampoon before it was the National Lampoon. Yeah. Okay, comment 1. He single-handedly ruined my 4.0 GPA. Thanks, bro. Thanks. Second comment. Awesome guy. Found his gore series and now addicted to it. Nice job, Mr. Norman. And the last one.
That comment just reeks of a popped collar.
Yeah, this one, this comment is... I would not be able to explain to you why it's so near and dear to my heart, but I hope you will find room in your life for it as I have found room in my life for it. This is the kind of person who has taken it upon themselves to review a professor. Please do not take unless you're a die-hard philosophy fan. His lectures are super boring. He speaks very monotone. He gives only a midterm and final, no other grades. So if you do poorly, your grade will suffer. He refers to himself as Jack, even though his name is John. I don't know why that last comment fills me with such joy. This guy is just angry because he hasn't heard of nicknames.
Oh, wow. He refers to himself as Jay, even though his name is Justin.
What? What kind of sociopath would do that?
A Kennedy?
Ayo.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, like I just... but with that level of complete obtuseness and stupidity, whoever wrote that will probably become a truly great figure in the philosophy of language.
Yeah, I think that's a safe bet. Oh, man, that's awesome. I had no idea that John Norman had such a looming shadow over the world of academia. But it's good to know that there's just a factory of Gorians getting pumped out onto the earth as we speak.
I think he retired like 2 years ago.
That's good for everyone.
Really free up some time to write more gore novels. Yeah. Please don't.
A man shouldn't be retired. Then how can a man prove that he is a man when he's enshackled by the fucking slave yoke of banality?
What is the cape color of the Guild of the Retired, I wonder?
Like...
gray?
Yeah, I would say like a light gray, kind of a staticky pattern like you're watching TV after it goes off the air.
Like a nice mouse?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a letter. Thank you so much for that. Other announcements, as you may or may not know, we've got a live show coming up on February 11th at 7:30 at night at Green Apple Books on the Park. I think that's on 9th here. It is
on 9th.
Sunny San Francisco. It is a free event, and it is a bad book party. Ba-ba-ba-ba.
It's going to be fun. We're going to be having a ton of guests. We're going to be reading from a bunch of the classics from the show as well as new things that you can bring. If you're showing up, bring your worst book that you own, or maybe the best book with the worst paragraph. But just be ready to submit shit. We're gonna have prizes. Man, so exciting!
Get psyched, people. We're psyched. You should be psyched too. Again, totally free. 7:30, February 11th. Green Apple Books on the Park. Be there, or we'll know you never loved the show.
Man, that's a harsh referendum there.
I'm a harsh dude.
It's a harsh realm. So
we'll catch you on the flippity flop.
yeah, thank you for listening. Keep in touch with us. I don't even own a television at gmail.com. We're on Twitter and Facebook, IDEO TV Pod. Search Facebook for the I don't even own a television party pit, which is where the shit goes down.
Oh man, so much shit. And its direction, it's not multi-level. It's not multi-directional. No, only one direction. Down.
Yeah. And just make sure to keep in touch. If you are into the show, leave us a good review, share it with your friends, etc., etc. I believe that's about it.
I think so. My mom listens to the show. Why doesn't your mom listen to the show?
Yeah, all of your relatives should listen to the show. You should spend every holiday being the annoying person that only talks about one thing, and that thing should be, I don't even own a television, the world's #1 podcast about bad books.
If there's even one person in your life who's woken up in the last week without earbuds stuffed into their ears and us playing, you have failed us.
No, yeah, pin them down and yell, you know what? You don't actually like Ender's Game. But thank you so much for listening. We'll be back again soon here in a couple of weeks. And until then, ride the crowd.
When the boys